Welcome to My Safety Training Online presents Steel Erection Safety, the 2001 standard. What topics we'll be covering? We'll talk about OSHA standards that apply, the primary activities covered by the standard, the ancillary activities covered by the standard, acceptable site rigging activities, acceptable site layout activities, and structural steel stability requirements, as well as fall protection requirements. Part 1. The main parts of the steel erection rule affecting construction personnel. The 2001 Steel Erection Rule covers all employers engaged in steel erection activities. It contains two lists of activities. The primary list, all are covered connecting, bracing, and guying activities, and the ancillary list, which covers when they occur during or are part of steel erection activities, such as sealing and caulking activities. The OSHA Steel Erection Rule does not apply to electrical transmission towers, nor communication and broadcast towers, as well as tanks. Okay, here we can see the decision tree, which shows you whether you are covered under the standard. First, you ask yourself, is the activity at the job site listed under 750B1? If no, is it also listed under 750B2? If you say yes, then the activity is covered under subpart R. If the activity is listed under 750B2 and you answer yes, then you must determine if this is going in conjunction with, during, or part of steel erection activities. A question to ask is, does this activity have to be done for steel erection to continue? If yes, and it must be done, then it is covered under the standard. If the answer is no to 750B, then it is listed as neither a B1 or B2 and is not covered by the standard. Part 2, job site safety issues and steel erection OSHA rule. The main components of this rule cover site layout, hoisting and rigging, structural steel stability requirements, such as the column anchorage, beams and columns, open web steel joints, structural steel assembly items. They also cover system engineering metal buildings, falling object protection, fall protection, and worker training. We will discuss site layout in what is an adequate layout area, as well as adequate access roads, as covered by 1926.752C. The hoisting and rigging section provides for adequate crane safety for steel erection. It helps to minimize employee exposure to overhead loads through pre-planning and work practice requirements, as covered under .753. The OSHA Steel Erection Standard for hoisting and rigging prescribes proper procedures for multiple lifts, such as Christmas treeing, as covered under 753E. The anchorage part of the standard says a minimum of 4 anchor bolts per steel column, with written notification of proper curing of the concrete in the footings, piers, walls for steel columns. Also, written notification of the adequacy of the anchor bolts modified or repaired in the field. This part is covered under 752A and 755. A minimum of 2 bolts per connection before releasing the hoist line are required. Safe procedures for making double connections of the columns are required under the .756 section of the standard. The open web steel joist section of the standards talks about minimizing the risk of collapse of lightweight steel joists by specifying erection, bridging, and method of attachment, and requiring erection bridging to be anchored to the terminus point, as well as specifying the method of placing loads on steel joints. Dot 757 is where you can find this information. The structural steel assembly calls for specific work practices such as hoisting deck bundles, minimizing fall hazards, trip hazards, interior holes and openings, and slip hazards. This information is found under Dot 754. The Systems Engineering Metal Buildings section has requirements to minimize the risk of collapse in the erection of these specialized structures that account for a major portion of the steel erection in this country. This is covered under Dot 758. The Falling Object Protection section has provisions that address the hazards of falling objects in steel erection. Please note this provision does not apply to materials being hoisted, as covered under Dot 759. Job site safety fall protection provisions above 30 feet or 2 stories call for all workers must be protected, including connectors and deckers. Between the 15 and 30 foot level, all workers must be protected except for connectors. Deckers working in controlled decking areas or CDZs. Provisions for this are found in Dot 760. Fall protection provisions call that connectors between the 15 and 30 foot must have all equipment necessary to be capable of being used to be tied off or use safety nets. These must be in place or they are not required to tie off. That's covered under Dot 760. Deckers between 15 and 30 feet can use controlled decking zone or CDZ instead of fall protection. This is covered under Dot 760C. Part 3. Steel Erection Job Safety Training Requirements. Safety training requirements call for a qualified person to train exposed workers in fall protection. The qualified workers should train exposed workers in special high-risk activities, as covered under Dot 761. Specific controlling contractor duties call for notification of the steel erector in writing regarding a concrete cure or anchorage bolt changes, as well as providing adequate layout areas and on-site access roads. This precludes work below steel erection unless there is an overhead protection. Steel erection and safety training calls for choosing whether to accept responsibility for maintaining fall protection equipment left by the erector or otherwise removing it. That's covered under Dot 761 as well. Thanks for participating in steel erection safety.